talk about some Salesforce architecture using events and platform events, and specifically AWS EventBridge. This is a really neat architecture to be able to decouple two systems and make them work together. So let's jump into it. So this is a Salesforce documentation on using Salesforce Event Bus, which is platform events, with the AWS EventBridge. Now, there's a few things that are kind of missing in here, so I want to show you what this actually looks like. So in Salesforce, you create your platform event. You can connect it to the AWS EventBridge, which automatically creates a channel. And you'll see I have read-only. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. What we've done in order to send the information back to Salesforce is we've created a new event channel that hits the REST API. Now, this read-only, the reason why I say that is read-only is events can only be created here from the platform events in Salesforce. So initially, we wanted our external system, we wanted Salesforce to all use the same event bridge. And our external system has its own events. Things are happening, users are doing things, and we can't write to that. So what we did is we created a new event channel. We have our external system create events there. We also have AWS set up with a rule that it forwards those events into this channel, and then all of those events also get sent into Salesforce. So there is a little bit of a circular here. You can filter those Salesforce events out from going back into Salesforce. But let's go into a little bit more on this. That's the simple setup. Salesforce recommends that you use their standard API. And this doesn't work well for actually decoupling systems. I'm going to show you why. Let's jump over to Postman. So to use their standard API, we have to use Salesforce names on the fields. So I've got event type __ C, item ID __ C, amount __ C. This ties our external system to Salesforce naming. The problem with that is that if the external system wants to add a field, we don't care about it in Salesforce. This is going to fail. So this is the event that is coming in from EventBridge, and let's say we want to add the bid ID field. Now, if I just add that in here and I try to send this, Salesforce is going to tell me there's no such column. So either our external system has to know what the Salesforce fields are, or AWS has to know and do some data transformation. So let me show you how we solve that problem. So what we did is we created a custom endpoint called events. And this endpoint is going to take the JSON data, and that JSON data is what EventBridge gets. So EventBridge has this information. This is that information from EventBridge. It's going to just take that same information, no transformation, send it into Salesforce, and then we'll do our magic here. So we're going to parse that out just to get a few pieces of information that we need to make this all work. We're going to use the factory design pattern. If you don't know the factory design pattern, not familiar with it, I highly recommend watching the factory design pattern video. So we're going to go down here to a processor factory. If it's a bid created, then we're going to create this event bid created object off that class. If it's not, we're just going to have this fallout class. It doesn't send a error code. It just sends a message saying it's an unsupported event type. That interface looks like this, process event. That's all that's in there. This is the event bid created. I'm not doing anything with the data here for this video, just for simplicity. And then it calls a process event and it returns the information. That's the whole of it. So if we jump over here to Postman, I'm going to go ahead and send this. Again, this is that data from AWS, exactly how AWS would send it with no transformations. I get a message, okay. That's from that bid created class. All right, that's the basic architecture. So we have the platform events, We didn't talk about this. This is just the standard Salesforce setup. It's in their documentation. I'll leave the link to this page in the description. There is the second channel. That's really the main channel. External system creates events there, goes into our REST API. We could have other systems if we wanted to. Also creating events that Salesforce is listening for, as many as we want. Or it could be creating events that we just don't care about and are just going back to the other external system. All right, so let's jump back to the code. So I want to talk about this processor factory for just a second. Whenever I'm building code like this, I like to build it as much of a framework as possible. I don't want to have to go back in here and change this code if I add a new event. So let's say that I have an event that is bid deleted. So we're going to let somebody delete their bid. If I send this, I'm going to get an unsupported event type because we don't have that in our factory. And so right now what I would have to do is I would have to go in and I would have to add an else if, and then I'd have to deal with that event type, right, and whatever class that is, and then I might have another else if for another event type. And you can see where this is going. This could get extremely big depending on how many events we have. And every time we add a new event, we've got to come in here and update this class. So let's redo this piece of code. So before I redo this piece of code, I'll show you in Salesforce. I've created custom metadata on Salesforce called Event Processor. Event Processor has an active field, Apex class, type. I'll show you how this works. So we're going to create a new one. This will be for our bid created. So we'll go ahead and give it a label. We're going to make it active. So you can go in and uncheck and make something inactive if you don't want to process that one anymore. Our Apex class is going to be event bid created. So just the name of our Apex class. And then the event type that we want to process. So this one is going to process the bid created event type. And we'll save that. All right. That's it for that piece. Now let's update this code. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to query our custom metadata. We're looking specifically for that Apex class. Right? We're looking for the type that equals our event type, and it has to be active. And if I move my head over here, you can see we're limiting it to one because there should only be one record per event type. Okay. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to check and see if this list, you'll see that I'm doing a list. The reason I do a list and not a single one is because if it doesn't exist, this is just going to throw an error. So I do a list, I check if it's empty. If it is empty, I'm going to do the fallout class. The class doesn't exist. All right. So our next step is to do a little bit of Salesforce magic here. This type for name is going to take the name of the Apex class coming from the custom metadata. It's going to put it into that handler type, and it's going to create a type. And then from there, we can create a new instance. Now, all of these Apex classes have to implement that event interface that we saw before, so we can cast it to that event interface and go ahead and return our factory. All right, simple enough. There's one more piece that I want to do here before we create the bid deleted. What happens if our Apex class, if we put in the wrong name or something like that? Well, what happens here is handler type ends up being null. So in that case, I'm going to create a new custom exception. We will call it missing Apex. Just G in there. Okay, and then we'll come up here and we'll just simply throw missing Apex, and I'm going to say that this class cannot be found. Okay, simple as that. So if the class name is not typed in right, we will throw an error on this one. And then everything else works exactly the way that it was before. So I'm going to go ahead and push this to Salesforce, and we're going to go back into Postman and we're going to try it. All right, so it's deployed to Salesforce. So if I jump back over here, change this back to bid created, I should still see the same thing. Message OK. If I change this to bid deleted, I should still see the same thing, unsupported event. So now let's go create the class for the bid deleted. So we'll create the Apex class. Call it bid, and I have a custom folder to put this in. This is going to implement that event interface. One method that has to be implemented is the process event, and we're going to say delete done. And of course in here would be our logic to delete. All right, now notice I've completely added the bid delete logic, and I have not updated the event processor class to handle this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into Salesforce, and we're going to create a new, let's actually create a new one, a new event processor custom metadata record. We'll call this bid deleted. We'll make it active. We'll give it an Apex class. And I'm going to do something here. I'm going to misspell this just so we can check and see that our error is happening. And the type is bid deleted. Okay, let's make sure that deployed. And we're going to go over here, hit send, and we should see that Apex error, class cannot be found. Let's fix that spelling error. Run this again. Delete done. There it is. And you'll notice I was able to add this brand new logic without ever touching our API code. So at this point, any new events that we want to create, we just have to create a new class that implements them. That finishes up our video for today. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them down below. I'll take a look at them. If you like my code, let me know. If you don't like my code, let me know. I'm always looking for ways to learn and love to hear your feedback. Thanks for joining me today.